Yo guys, what is up? My name is Grizzly, and today I will cover the third champion of my kind of guide, to all top lane champions. And the next one in line is actually Camille. We skip down quite a bit here. I actually first considered covering maybe Annie. There is a coach called LS that has this Annie hype train going on, and while I do admit that she's really good for mid lane, especially in lower elo, I'm not so sold on the top lane Annie. Maybe I'll do that later, we'll see. But for now we'll cover Camille. Camille is extremely solid. She's gotten a lot of nerfs since release. Obviously she was a bit overtuned at the start. But now on the PvE she's actually getting buffed again. They will increase the damage on her second Q with 20%, so that's quite a lot. Okay, but I will go over her abilities as I did with the other champions, and let me just check that it isn't too high volume here. Okay, we seem to be fine. Okay, so her passive is basically a shield, and the shield can either be for physical or magic damage depending on the enemy champion, so this is really handy in trades. The duration scales up with level, as you can see. Before it was really long, but they have nerfed that, and now the duration is quite short. The cooldown also scales down with level. Okay, so her Q is basically her main kind of trading tool. Camille uses Q to do an auto attack reset, and then she can activate it again to do another one. But if you wait for, I think it's about 2 seconds, 1.5, something like that, the auto attack instead turns into a kind of a back kick, which deals a lot more damage and also does true damage. So you basically want to wait for that if you're able. Her W is her sustain and also her harass in lane. Before it used to sustain off of creeps, but now it's only enemy champions, so make sure you actually hit the enemy champion. They are also slowed. Her E is kind of a staple ability actually, it's very unique. Camille jumps to a wall and then she can reactivate the ability to do a jump, and if she collides with champions they are stunned, and if she also connects with a champion she gets a lot of attack speed. So it's a quite unique spell, and it's really good if it's used properly, and I would say this ability is like the main difference between like a solid Camille, a really good Camille, and a bad Camille, so you can really notice the difference quite easily. Her ultimate locks the target into a cage, and if you walk out of it or you get knocked out of it, the cage disappears. And while they're in the cage, they take bonus magic damage from your auto attacks. So it can be good for all-ins, but it's mostly used to get picks later on in the game. And it's also kind of a dash. You jump while using it, and it's also an iframe, which means it's an invulnerability frame, which means that you're untargetable during the jump, and you can avoid like half a ulti or stuff like that with it. It's quite cute in that way. Okay, so I'm gonna go over her masteries now. Camille masteries are very straightforward. It's basically Fervor of Battle you want to aim for. So you go Fury because she uses attack speed quite a lot. Feast, for the most part. You can go Fresh Blood in certain matchups if you don't get arrested much and you think you can outtrade the opponent, but I would recommend Feast. Then Vampirism because she doesn't really do much with the AP. Battle Trance is the best for sustained damage fighters always. Armor Pen is then a magic pen because she does physical damage of course, and then Fervor of Battle. Okay, now we want to go into Resolve, so we go Recovery for better early game laning. She doesn't have that much sustain, her W isn't that reliable actually. And then Tough Skin. Here, before I actually considered after they nerfed the W to only affect champions, I thought of maybe I would go Veteran Scars because it nerfed this a bit, but then I remembered that her passive is actually a shield and is it is affected by this as well, so this is by far the best option still, so make sure to go Runic Armor. And then Insight of course, it's really good. Okay guys, so now I'm gonna go into a practice mode, and I'm gonna show you some of her combos and her builds and stuff like that, so see you guys soon. Okay guys, we're now into the practice mode. Okay, so starting items for Camille. Doran's Blade is actually a good alternative now because, as I talked about before, Doran's Shield has gotten a nerf now. It costs 450 gold, so you only get 1 potion. I would still most likely go Doran's Shield in most matchups though, because Camille's like first few levels can be a bit tough sometimes. But other than that, if you think you can play aggressive in lane, Doran's Blade is just fine as well. Now after you've backed the first time, you want to look into getting either Tiamat or Sheen. Actually, it kind of depends. Another alternative is actually Phage as well. I will try to explain the differences between these. Tiamat is basically for farm lanes where you benefit from shoving the enemy into tower, so a lane that you can't really have kill pressure on, but you still want to have this shoving advantage, because obviously you will always miss some CS under tower no matter how good you are, so Tiamat can be good to rush in those scenarios. But most of the time Sheen is also really good. It adds a bit more sustain because you can get more W's off, and it also gives you really good short trades, so in matchups where you want to trade like in short time spans, Sheen is great. And then as for Phage, it's basically if you want to just win the all-in against the opponent. So for example, Camille versus Jax can be a really snowballing matchup, and even like versus Irelia or something like that, Riven as well, where the extra HP Phage gives actually makes a huge difference in the all-in, so that can be really huge. While you're facing against Darius, for example, you won't really win the all-in even if you build Phage, and therefore Sheen can be very good, because you get these short trades off and you can like constantly like try to force him out of lane if you get some good trades in a row off, so it really depends. Now as for, but the first item will always be Trinity Force. That's one thing that you always have to keep in mind, so even if you go Tiamat, you want to go Trinity Force right after. Now for boots, ninjas or mercs, most of the time ninjas obviously. I will use the example. Now as Camille, for your second item, you can either choose to go into Ravenous or Titanic. The differences between these two are that Titanic obviously makes you more tanky, so it makes you better in fights, but Hydra is actually a bit better for the split push, especially if you need to sustain in the matchup. So if you play someone else that builds lifesteal, or you play versus like someone that has inherent lifesteal, like for example Darius or something like that, Ravenous Hydra can actually be a good choice, because you can sustain in the lane and yeah, keep the split push pressure up. But keep in mind, if you're behind, you always want to go Titanic Hydra over Ravenous, because the extra sustain won't matter if you die in the all-in 1v1. So and Titanic is actually, for the most part, I would say better for like an all-out fight, because it adds a lot more burst damage. And yeah, Hydra is more of a like sustain item, you know, keep pressure up kind of thing. And if you really ahead, go Ravenous Hydra, because yeah, more damage. If you build a lot of AD and you can get like penetration afterwards or something like that. But for like the 2-item spike, Titanic is stronger, I would say. Okay. Now after this, there are some alternatives. The most popular item after this is actually Guardian Angel, but obviously you only really want to do this against AD opponents, because it gives quite a bit of armor actually. So another alternative to this is Spirit Visage or Mouth Malmortius, but I would say that Spirit Visage is better most of the time. And then as for your last item, Stair's Cage is fine. It adds more damage to your Trinity Force procs. Demon's Plate is also good. Randoms if they have a lot of crits, so it really depends. But this endgame build I think is one of the better endgame builds for Camille. It's a nice overall like good power level on your MR, your armor, your HP, and your damage. Okay, so I'm gonna level us up here to level 18, and I'm gonna show you like how Camille's kind of damage works. Okay, move to cursor. Here we go, and then an enemy target dummy. Okay. So as Camille, when you engage fights, you want to make sure that you land the E onto them, because you get the 80% attack speed for 5 seconds buff. It's one of the best steroids in the game actually. So you want to make sure you land this, and as you can see, I started attacking really fast, and then you can reactivate your Titanic Hydra to, you know, get some more attacks in. And then you always want to make sure you wait to get the true damage onto your Q. Now I play without sound right now, so it's a bit harder for me, but you actually hear a really like it's really easy to recognize sound when your true damage Q is ready, so keep that in mind. It's really good to play with sound on this character. You can also see a kind of a shining animation on her when she gets it. It kind of clicks like that on her hands, but it's easier to play with sound in my opinion. And the thing with Camille late game is that her cooldowns are actually really short considering how strong they are. Now, as you can see here, the E, it has huge mobility, and it's only a 7-second cooldown. It's also 80% attack speed steroid and a stun. It's an absolutely insane ability. Now, W is not that good later into the game. It can add like extra chase pressure and something like that, but if you're actually in melee with a target, it's most of the time, especially if you have the attack speed buff, to just keep combing with your Qs and your auto attacks. But as you can see here, the Q actually does 900 true damage late game, so that's like it's almost a Darius ultimate, it's so insane. And the ulti obviously gives her more magic damage on Arthas, as you can see, like 76, 65, 54, 14, so it adds quite a bit of damage, and I actually think that the damage is based on their current health, yeah. So obviously if you engage with this, you will get a lot of bonus on this as well. But other than that, Camille isn't really that complicated of a champion. She's really straightforward. She is quite difficult mechanically, so make sure that you practice her a lot if you want to pull her out, and she's really strong in some certain matchups. She scales very solidly. Overall, just a really good top laner, and I would recommend pretty much anyone to play her if you believe in your mechanics, so to say, because she can be quite difficult actually. But other than that, thanks a lot for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.